Amazing. So welcome all. Without further ado, we'll get started. My name is Sam Erman. I use he, him pronouns, and I am broadcasting live from Northeast Portland. I'm right at the northeast corner of Alberta Park on 22nd and Ainsworth. If I flip around, you can see I'm right here on Ainsworth. And today I'm going to be talking about the Ainsworth Linear Arboretum. It's a site that is new to me. It's something that is really exciting and accessible. So I don't know if I don't know about you, but whenever I've been traveling down Ainsworth on my bike, in my car, on the sidewalk, I've seen this huge median with trees, and I've kind of been like, oh, that's really cool. That's like a really treed street. There's trees in the middle. Trees have been shown to do all types of have all types of benefits with regards to slowing down traffic, reducing stress, boosting immune system function. I've always been like, wow, what a cool neighborhood. There's all these trees. I didn't really know the history behind it, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. So where we actually are is a linear arboretum that goes all the way down Ainsworth from MLK to basically Fernhill Park, which I believe is on 37th, somewhere around that in Northeast Portland. I'm right in the middle here at Alberta Park. And I'm gonna head down and kind of take you for a little walk. Today we'll look at a few trees and kind of talk about the history of the space. But it's a really cool area. It's somewhere that you are in an arboretum whenever you're traveling down Ainsworth, which is something that is truly incredible. So if you can see, I'm trying to get a good focus. I'm gonna flip this around so you can see better. You can see there's a bunch of big trees in the median. Most of which are maples. And interesting fact, most of our canopy are maple. And so out of fear of pests coming in and killing maple or causing a maple die-off, we've really been trying to diversify the urban canopy. So planting species that, additional species in parking strips, in medians like this at the Ainsworth Arboretum, to create diversity and resilience in our urban canopy. So if a pest was to come through and affect maple, then all of our other species will do fine, and we won't have. I think it's more than half of our canopy right now is maple. And so this was planted a long time ago with maple, but in 2005 it was planted in an effort by actually one of our longtime volunteers and ex-board member, Jim Gershbach, who lives in the neighborhood, and wanted to increase the diversity in trees of this place. So working with us and with the city, a lot of trees were planted, like diverse trees that we hadn't seen before. And so this is basically a 2-mile arboretum. I'm going to pull this down so you can see my mouth. This is basically a 2-mile arboretum that showcases a bunch of different, like 60 plus species of trees that can be growing in the street in Portland that are not maple. So it's this really cool area, and it's something that it's an arboretum that is just accessible. It's one that we travel through all the time. You don't have to go to to Washington Park or wherever to get into a really cool diverse arboretum. It's actually right here in Northeast Ainsworth, and it's 2 miles from Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard to Fernhill Park, which is about on 37th and Ainsworth. Right now I'm on the northeast corner of Alberta Park on 22nd and Ainsworth, and I'm just going to start a little walk. So that's kind of an overview of the Arboretum. Has anyone been here that is watching right now? I'd love to hear in the comments throughout this entire thing. This is as collaborative as you all make it. I would love to have a conversation with you. So if you do, if you have experience here or you want to talk about anything tree related, I'm not guaranteeing that I can answer it or provide, but I'll do my best. And but yeah, I would love to hear throughout this entire thing. So just let me know. It also looks like we do have the opportunity on Facebook Live now to do split screens. So if anyone wants to join me and you're feeling like you want to chat trees or Northeast Portland or arboretums, just send me a request on the bottom and I'll see what I can do about getting you in. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you joining, my name is Sam Erman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the corporate and business relations specialist at Friends of Trees. And I'm really excited to be bringing you some live content from the Ainsworth Linear Arboretum, which is a 2-mile arboretum in basically the middle of Ainsworth and also on either side. Right now I'm by Alberta Park, but you can see all the homeowners, across the way as well have trees that are part of the arboretum planted in their parking strips or even in their yards, as we'll see. We're going to visit an Atlas cedar that is very large and big. That's listed as an arboretum species that's in people's yards. And another really cool fact about this arboretum is it may be one of the largest in the nation that is not taxpayer funded. So it's actually funded by the neighborhood. Is responsible for, to my understanding, for caring for these trees alongside the city and Friends of Trees. So it's a really cool project, and actually Columbia Slough Watershed Council as well is doing a really cool wildlife corridor, native tree and shrub planting in the understory of some of these trees that were planted. It's a really amazing thing, and it's so accessible. If you're walking around Northeast Portland, pop over to Ainsworth and check out these trees, because it really is something special and to behold, and it's a true asset to the community. So without further ado, I guess we'll take a little bit of a walk. As you can see, I'm on the northeast corner of Alberta Park. I'm just going to stroll to our first tree, which is an Atlas cedar, which is in someone's yard. I'm just going to put my face mask up as I move around the space. And it's going to be really cool. While I do this, I'll flip around so you can just see some of these trees. And I'm going to continue just talking about the Linear Arboretum until we get to our first stop. And like I said, if you have any questions or comments or anything, let me know. I'd be excited to answer and collaborate. So I'm going to flip this around. And just to give you a sense of how cool this Arboretum really is, like I said, it's 2 miles all the way basically down Ainsworth from MLK to Fernhill Park. And so it crosses Alberta Park, and it basically ends at Fernhill Park. It's a really cool nature walk in Northeast Portland. So I'm just going to flip this around. Just bear with me. Okay, great. So you can see there are all these trees in the median. There are trees across the street planted in people's yards, in the parking strip. Same thing here. And this is all part of a linear arboretum that was created, I think it was planted in 2005 by Friends of Trees board member and longtime volunteer and just general overall tree superstar Jim Gershbach. And as we're walking, you'll just see the diversity in trees that we have is amazing. It makes for a really treed area, and there's all this research that's been done about viewing trees and how even just 5 minutes of viewing trees can reduce stress, boost immune system function. And it also does things like reduce speeds of cars, that are passing through. So Ainsworth, this could be a really busy street, which it is, but actually having trees in the median and especially on the sides actually reduces the field of vision for folks driving cars, and actually causes psychologically to move slower, to drive slower. So it's a pretty cool thing. I'm just going to look up at these trees, and this is all in celebration of Earth Month. We're so excited to be bringing you a month-long content. I hope that you enjoyed our Earth Day videos. If you saw them, if you didn't, I really urge you to check them out. We had so many great guests, speakers, and from within Friends of Trees and beyond. A real highlight for me was watching Dr. Vivek Chandas talk about equitably planting trees in Portland and beyond, and kind of the opportunities and challenges that we face in doing so, and how dangerous really hot streets are that are not treed. So you could see there's so much canopy here. There's so much shade in the summer. Without all these, this would be a hot zone. And heat is a major issue for public health, and having cooler streets, cooler cities is important, especially with climate change, a changing climate, where our summers are hotter, and with everything else, with all of the extreme weather, and the other side is that, so we have colder winters. So that's just to be said. So you'll see I'm just walking around along this Arboretum. It's incredible. There's so much canopy, and this is 2 miles along Northeast Ainsworth from MLK to Fernhill Park, I believe until around 37. But I wanted to highlight this tree that is actually in the yard. It's part of the Arboretum though, and this is an Atlas cedar. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Atlas cedar. We do have quite a few in Portland. This is such a beautiful one, and they're actually from the Atlas Mountains of Morocco in northern Africa, and they are a true cedar. So our Western red cedar is actually a false cedar, and this is a true cedar. You can see, actually, I can't see any right now, but you might notice this tree or have seen it before because it has these really large cones. Let me flip around so I can kind of talk with my hands as well. So this Atlas cedar, they usually have these huge cones that are like wide and not that tall, and they actually grow vertically on the lower branches of these trees. Um, is really something to see. They're really distinct, and I'm sure you've seen them around. But this is the Atlas cedar, and I just thought it was so cool that it was listed along with these other trees in this arboretum. Behind me, all these big, bushy, fluffy trees are maples, and this was planted really because to introduce more diversity in tree species in the urban canopy, as having too much of one species, maple, for example, in Portland, if we got a pest, then half of our trees would be gone, being maple. So you can see there's all these old trees, and then there's all these younger trees, which are different species in both the median and in people's yards and along the parking strip that are not maples, that are different species, different species of street trees. So it's really like a showcase of street trees that could be planted, and I think there's over 60 species just in the Arboretum over these 2 miles. So it's a really cool thing. And behind me is this Atlas cedar, which is just absolutely massive. And like I said before, it's a true cedar, and it has these really, really cool cones that grow straight up on the lower branches that are big, that are like, and kind of almost like round. It's really cool. So I'm going to flip this around. We'll look at this Atlas cedar a little more, and then we'll kind of proceed our walk. So for those of you just joining, welcome. Happy Earth Month. This is Sam Erman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Corporate and Business Relations Specialist at Friends of Trees. And I am just excited to be bringing you some tree viewing content in celebration of Earth Month, where we're talking about and walking along the Ainsworth Linear Arboretum. This is just such a cool public arboretum that has, traffic running through it, quite literally, as you can see behind me. That stretches for 2 miles, and it's just a showcase of a bunch of trees that are not, the dominant species in Portland, which is maple. And actually, a fun fact is that we actually don't plant maple anymore. We can't plant maple in Portland, just so we can increase the diversity in species. On the chance that a pest comes in and wipes out maple. I will say that I think that there was a lot of elm here originally too, and as many of you know, the Dutch elm disease wiped out a bunch of elms around the country, and this is no different. So a lot of in those maples that have died, and those elms that have died, in their absence, were in 2005. There's a big effort to plant diversity of species along, and as you can actually see behind me, there's this little nature trail, which is part of the Columbia Slough Watershed Council's newest habitat corridor project, which is really cool. And so there are like these diverse tree species that are getting pretty large that have been planted about 17 years ago. And then in the understory, there are like a bunch of really cool native trees, shrubs, and like an herbaceous layer of native plants as well. So it's really sweet. So again, we're looking at this Atlas cedar. It is native to the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, and is just a really, really cool, true cedar. You can see it has these kind of soft needles, and the whole tree is like pretty wispy. You can see they're kind of hang down, and they produce these really big, vertically growing cones on the bottom of the tree that are really distinct. They're kind of like nothing else that I've seen before. And so if you see those, it's probably an Atlas cedar. So I'm going to flip it back around and we'll just go on a little farther of a walk. So I mentioned before, but having trees in neighborhoods, and especially where it's like as dramatic as this, where you can look and there's trees in the yards, and so here's trees in people's yards. There's a huge cedar behind me. Then we have trees in the parking strip. Then we have trees in the median, and then the same in the parking strip and in people's yards on the other side. That really reduces the speed of traffic. It narrows the field of vision for folks that are driving, and actually psychologically makes you drive slower, which makes for a much safer as far as pedestrians go neighborhood. So it's kind of this really cool thing, and you could see there are some pretty climate adaptive species that have been planted here. You know, in the median, I'm looking at a ginkgo biloba, which grows in all types of soil conditions. It's an incredible tree, and it's just a really cool one. I think it's one of those that, you know, is going to be really important for, you know, a world with a changing climate, and a city with a changing climate. They say that Portland is supposed to have the climate of, you know, farther south like Sacramento. And so it's really important to think about once we're talking about trees and planting and urban canopy. Here's a dogwood, and just viewing trees for you know about 5 minutes has been shown to reduce stress, boost immune system function. Another reason we want to bring you these videos is just to provide some tree viewing content from the safety of your own home. You know, we're you know, as you know. Absolutely. You know, we're more than a year into this pandemic, and you know, we just want to provide opportunities to connect with you if we can't connect with you in person, and also to provide opportunities to just look at trees from the safety of your own home, especially with cases rising in Oregon and in Portland. So there's some really important tree viewing. So sporadically through this walk, I'm just gonna kind of focus this camera on a tree and just provide some tree viewing for you. Beautiful day out here. So yeah, and those of you just joining, I am Sam Erman. I use he, him pronouns. And we're going on a little bit of a walk around the Ainsworth Linear Arboretum in Northeast Portland. And it's really cool. It's about 2 miles of arboretum, just through literally the middle, as you can see behind me, of Northeast Ainsworth, which is a pretty busy street. So that's a really cool thing. And so I'm gonna flip this back around and we'll look at our next tree. Again, this is the Atlas cedar that we were just talking about. Such a cool one, native to the Atlas Mountains in Morocco. And actually, the lower branches, the male cones are these like big, wide cones that grow vertically. And I wish that it was the time of year where we'd see some, but it's not. So I'm just gonna continue walking. You know, we have a cherry, another cherry, and well, we're coming to our next tree stop, which is this Persian Ironwood, which is such a cool tree, and it's something that we're planting a lot, and it's native to Iran, and it is a tree that is growing really well in our built environment. And so the Persian Ironwood is drought tolerant, which is really important, especially with the changing climate. And you can see it has these kind of like, you know, wide oval leaves that are alternate. So alternate meaning, so you'll hear us often talk about opposite or alternate leaves. Alternate, when we say that, we just mean that this is growing here, this leaf, and then this is growing here. If it was opposite, then it would just be growing directly across from each other. So the next leaf would be right here. But alternate, it's just here, 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 here. If that makes sense. Sorry, I wasn't zoomed in. So here, 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 and not like here and here. It's a really good start when identifying a tree and shrub and just plant in general is to determine if it's opposite or alternate, and that gives you a great, you know, way to narrow down what tree species you're looking at. So again, if you're looking at that, and you can think about it without any leaves, that this is here, 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 it's alternate. So you have 1, 1, 1. And then if it was opposite, you'd have 2, 2, 2. Dogwoods are opposite, and we'll actually look at a dogwood after this, and it's a really cool way to identify, at least get a start on identifying what tree you're looking at. So again, this is the Persian Ironwood. It's something that we plant a lot in Portland on trees, and it's pretty drought tolerant. It does great, and it has these opposite kind of like oval green leaves. It's a really cool thing. So I'm going to continue to walk, and we're actually going to provide a good example of a tree that is not alternate and is actually opposite, and that's a flowering dogwood, which I don't know about you, but I've been seeing all over town, and they're so beautiful for their flowers. And so the ones that we're going to be looking at have really great white flowers, and yeah, so we'll take a look. So I'm just walking to our next tree. Cool, and this is a flowering dogwood, which are popping off right now. So as you can see, let's see here. You see these are going directly out from each other? That is a opposite leaf shape. And not an alternate leaf shape would be like here, 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 here. But these are actually branching out like this. Kind of a cool thing. So these dogwood are beautiful, and these that look like flowers are actually leaves, which is just like blew my mind. I actually didn't know that until our most recent Earth Day video, where our deputy director Whitney Dora was talking about dogwoods, and I always thought these were flowers. They even feel like flowers, but they're actually technically leaves. So that's really cool. But they are just popping off. This is a flowering dogwood, or I believe what's the Latin name? Cornus Florida, I believe. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. As always. But it's just this beautiful, beautiful tree that is producing just the most gorgeous, gorgeous flowers right now. And you'll see them all over town. They're either white or a lot of them are pink. And yeah, flowering dogwood. And these flowers are actually leaves. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, and so that is, what I wanted to talk about today. The Linear Arboretum, Ainsworth Linear Arboretum in Northeast Portland, which is this 2-mile arboretum that spans from people's yards to their planting strip to this huge median. And something that is a barrier to planting trees along the street is actually the fact that there are like narrow planting strips, or there's overhead wires. And so in the middle of the street here in the median, this is a huge and wide area, and there are very little overhead wires, except for, there are some as you get farther down the street. But it is such a cool opportunity to plant big trees in Portland and shade this neighborhood, and also show off all of the potential trees that we could be planting in the city. And so it's really an amazing place, and I think it's one of the biggest arboretums that's actually like cared for by homeowners and not by the city, or by using taxpayer money, at least. So at least that's how it was in 2005. I'm not too sure how it is totally being maintained now. But yeah, this was planted in 2005 to replace a lot of elms and maples that had died, and also just to diversify the urban canopy. A big fear of having a kind of like a monoculture of our urban canopy, which over 50% are maple, is that if a pest came in that maples were susceptible to, then it would take out most of our urban canopy. So it's a really cool showcase of the trees that we could be planting. I believe there's over 60 species over these 2 miles. So I really encourage you to come out and ride your bike, take a walk, or even if you're just driving through Northeast Portland, drive down to Ainsworth between MLK and Fern Hill Park, I believe, which is on 37th, and just check out these trees. Maybe you've driven it a lot before, and you're just like, that is an incredibly treed area. But there's a really cool story there in that it's actually an arboretum, and you can read up on it on the city of Portland's website if you just Google like uh, Ainsworth Linear Arboretum. There's a cool pamphlet on it with a little walking tour that has different species and history of the site. And so that's kind of it. Thank you so much for walking. If you have any questions about anything that I said, let me know. I'd love to answer them. I'd answer them live now or drop them in the comments and we'll answer them later. And really, we just wanted to walk around and give a good tree viewing opportunity and just talk a little more about urban canopy in Portland. It's so cool. It's something from a personal standpoint. I love Portland's trees. It's something that's so incredible to me. And until I started working on Friends of Trees about like 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I had no idea of all of these like really significant areas. The Ainsworth Linear Arboretum being one of them. And I used to live in this neighborhood and ride my bike down Ainsworth all the time, which is a little busy. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it's just so cool. I didn't know that I was literally just riding my bike through an arboretum. And so maybe you're commuting in your car or going for a walk or whatever. Check out the Ainsworth Linear Arboretum. It's so cool. And yeah, so thank you so much. Happy Earth Month. This is one of our last live videos. We will be going live again on Friday, which is also Arbor Day. And so, yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. We do have a match this month if you're looking to support Friends of Trees in a additional way. We have a match up to $25,000 during the month of April. So check out our website, and you can make a donation there if you'd like to. So thank you so much for tuning in. It really means so much. And get out there and look at some trees. Check out the Ainsworth Linear Arboretum. It's a really cool place and such an asset to us in Portland. And maybe you're checking it out all the time and you didn't know what it was, as I was. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you soon. Be safe, and goodbye.